5.6 million. That's how many people would study in another country before COVID-19 hit our world. This number means three things. Number one, our world must have been a very peaceful place to allow people to freely choose where they want to study. Second, host countries must have been very welcoming and open to the other cultures. Three, there is money to be made. Being always the top 5 destination for international students, Australia made full use of the opportunity by developing its education sector into one of the most international student-friendly and one of the most profitable in our world. Australia is obviously just one player in the international students market, but today we will talk about Australia as an example, or just as a window to look into this modern phenomenon of international students boom, because on a per capita basis, Australia has the most number of international students, 27 within every 100 students in this country, which is making Australia a compelling case if one is to study the international students phenomenon. In the year of 2019, this education export contributed to the Australian economy with $37.6 billion. In 2019, there were about 600,000 international students residing in Australia. On average, each international student would contribute $63,000 to the Australian economy every year in cold hard cash. This way of financially visualizing the impact of international students is indeed extraordinary, not because it has quantified the impact of international students in Australia, but also justified for the existence of them. By putting a price tag on international student, we can easily understand if you save 1 year worth of money for international study in Australia, you can buy a BMW 3 Series. Or if you combine all the international students' business in Australia, the combined size is equivalent to the giant sportswear maker Adidas. I was writing this video and got to this point after I've done all my research on the financial figures, and then I realized something. Like all other exports such as iron ore and wheat, international students are often categorized as a form of export, a core in the big machine of global trade. International students might have been the only people in the society that get talked about using exclusively financial measurements, but international students are also human. So there must be other perspectives on this international students phenomenon. What is the deal for this international students boom? While economic factor is undeniable, can we possibly take a different look at this phenomenon, like in a non-financial way? If we take all the financial things aside, there are 600,000 international students in Australia spread across all major cities and towns who are also here living the same lifestyle as other local students. 600,000 people. What made them insert themselves in such an intercultural, international, and for the majority of them, interlingual situation? Welcome to today's episode of 1 kg CO2, and through today's video, I want to answer these questions. 1. Are international students just cash cows? 2. Are international students just another form of export? 3. Are international students changing the Australian universities? So let's get started. The primary reason for international studies is the most obvious reason: access to knowledge. If the education quality is the same, I do not believe anyone will pay the price of a BMW 3 Series every year just to go to class in a different country. Let's use Chinese international students as an example. Chinese students make up about 30% of Australia's international students population, by far the most in terms of number. In an analysis published by a Shanghai-based university research institute, where countries are rated based on how many world-class universities they have when compared to how many citizens they have. The highest ranked country by this analysis is Switzerland, where there are 5 top 100 universities with a population of only 8.6 million. And the lowest ranked country in this selection is actually China, where there are only 4 top 100 universities for 1.4 billion people to share. And our topical country today, Australia, has 7 top 100 universities with only 25 million citizens. So, if you compare these 4 numbers between China and Australia side by side, 4 on 1.4 billion and 7 on 25 million, it is clear that there is abundance on one side of the equation and extreme shortage on the other side. By natural free market force, international students are almost a certain thing from China flowing to Australia. Macro trends aside though, what if we take a look at an international student as an individual? What motivates this student on an individual level to study in Australia? Australia is a highly immigrant-friendly country with about 30% of its current population born overseas. That means if you are an immigrant international student in Australia, you will be immediately blessed with already established social infrastructure to support your lifestyle for things like authentic multicultural restaurants and international student friend groups. In addition to access to high quality education, the most obvious motivation would also be to access the labour market in Australia after graduation. Working in Australia after completion of study means you would enter a workforce that has the world's second highest minimum wage at more than $12 per hour under the protection of one of the world's best workers' rights system. However, the land down under isn't all perfect for international students' adventure. In reality, it's far from it. Yes, if everything goes well for you as an international student, you access good education, you immigrate, and you access a world-class labor market, you will be granted the rights to live in the world's top 10 quality of life country, governed by one of the most transparent governments with a highly developed economy. But from an international student fresh off the boat, all the way to an established professional that has a promising career in a foreign country in Australia, and then the freedom of choice to whether immigrate and stay in Australia or to leave for your home country. What are the difficulties in between? What challenges might lie in front of you? After you first arrive in Australia and get involved into the coursework that you have been dreaming about and planning for, you will quickly find yourself facing a completely new education system if you are not from a Western culture. Adapting to a university lifestyle is a big transition for many. Adapting to a university lifestyle and a foreign lifestyle might just be even worse. There is 15% chance for an international student to fail in the first semester. And every time you fail, you would need to pay for the sky-high tuition fee once again and bear the pressure of explaining that to your financier, usually your parents, the reason why you failed. Although domestic students also suffer from a similar rate of failure, international students might fail a subject due to different reasons. The top reason is the ability to learn using English for non-English speakers. A number of universities in Australia have been accused by their own professors of admitting academically and linguistically ill-prepared students into their course and only to fail them right afterwards. Under Australian law, universities are given the power to judge whether an international student has the competent English skills and academic background to carry out their overseas studies. At the same time, because Australian universities are highly dependent on international students for their research fundings, for every student that comes through the door, there is an immediate cash incentive for the emitting university, even if the student consistently fails and struggles to complete any degree, he or she can be transferred to another university or other vocational education provider with more loose standards without having to go through any additional English testing. This has raised concerns within the academic community in this country, and the phrase cash cows has been born to describe this phenomenon, where universities view international students as a source of income and a source of income only. These students would become somebody else's problem if they fail to complete their degrees. In an extreme case, if an international student is highly unqualified and ill-prepared, he or she will get passed from the first institute of enrollment to the second and to the third, extending the amount of time required to complete education in Australia. And the longer it takes for the student to stay in this country, the better off economically for the entire international student export industry. Because everyone in the food chain will eventually get a bite of this ill-prepared student that was destined to become a cash cow. Extreme cases aside though, normally more than 70% of international students can complete their degrees in time. Cash cow or not, you as an international student now have come to a point where you have achieved what you came here for, higher education. What is next for you as an international student? As we talk about Australia being a top destination for immigrants, let's say you decide to stay in this country where you acquired your knowledge and your degree. Whether or not you can successfully migrate to Australia, as in common knowledge, depends on whether you can demonstrate to be a contributing member of society here, aka whether you can secure employment after your international student venture. Before COVID, there were about 160,000 skilled immigrants per year into Australia. Some are international students and some are workers who did not study in Australia. This is about 1 in 5 chance of an international student who wants to get a permanent residency after graduation. And this would be the last hardcore challenge you will face as a foreigner, because if you get past this point, you would not be treated as a foreigner in most cases and do not need to pay for one of the highest visa application fees in the world continuously just for the rights to stay. But if you take a deeper look into the immigration and employment data for international students in Australia, the challenge of getting a job in Australia might become even bigger than you originally have planned for. In a survey conducted by an Australian university, the probability of getting a full-time employment for an international student has been rapidly decreasing as the number of international students increase. According to that study in Australia, in 2019, only 18% of international graduates were able to secure full-time employment that is relevant to their field of study, and a whopping 33% were graduating into pure unemployment. At the end, as an international student, you look back at your journey. Started as an ambitious student choosing to pursue knowledge in a different country. You meet international friends along the way. Some of them are just like you, from a completely different country. Some of them are unlike you, born and raised only 2 blocks away from the classroom. You power through all the difficulties that may be in the way of you completing your degree, because your degree costs more than a BMW 3 Series per year. 70% chance you would complete your degree in time and demonstrate to be a competent international graduate to enter that workforce. With a little bit less than 20% chance you would secure a full-time employment somewhat relevant to what you studied and potentially migrate to this country that was once a foreign country to you. And you will become one of the 8 million Australians who were born overseas. International students is the intersection of economics, cultures, and even politics. So are international students just cash cows? In some extreme cases, unfortunately, yes, it might be true. Are international students just another export like cotton and iron ore? If you take a purely economic view, yes they are. Are international students changing the way Australian universities operate? Of course they are. There are more than 600,000 international students in Australia, which is more than double the population of this country's capital city, Canberra. For the host country and university, there are many benefits and challenges to maintaining a large population of international students. And for the international students, there are also huge challenges along the way, but this can also be a very rewarding journey to be part of anybody's life experience. Today we focused only on Australia, but this phenomenon is truly global, no matter which part of the world you're from. COVID-19 has been the biggest hit to this international students industry worldwide. Furthermore, deglobalization trends and instability in international politics continue to rise. What will happen next to the international students and the host universities? Will the number of international students continue to rise once we recover from COVID restrictions, or we have already seen the peak of international students? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And finally, if you have enjoyed watching this video, thank you. Consider subscribing, and I will remove 1 kg of CO2 for your subscription. Subscribe, and I would like to present to you another 1 kg CO2 video.